You think you know your own family, until one moment shows you the painful truth. I was in the kitchen making lunch when I heard something that made my whole body freeze. My son Edward was in the living room telling his wife, Grace, to use my bank card. Mom has like $130,000 saved. She won't mind, he said, like the money I worked 40 years for belonged to him. My heart dropped. I raised him alone after his father left. I spent my life cleaning floors, sewing until sunrise, counting every penny. That money was my dream, a small home where I could finally have peace. And there he was, handing over my card as if I didn't exist. Grace asked sweetly, "Are you sure she won't get mad?" Edward answered, "She lives here for free. She eats our food. She's old. She doesn't need that money. We have a life to build." Every word sliced through me. They said I lived for free even though I gave them my entire $500 pension every month, even though I cooked, cleaned, washed, and cared for this home. Even though I sold my little house to help them buy this one. Grace grabbed my card and left for the mall, ready to spend the money I spent decades saving. I looked at my old, tired hands. Hands that had worked since I was 14. Every dollar I saved came from saying no to myself for years. No new clothes. No vacations. No nights out. All for one simple dream, to not be a burden. But in their eyes, I already was. Edward walked in like nothing happened. "Is lunch almost ready?" "We need stuff for the house," he said, staring at his phone. No shame. No respect. That was the moment something inside me finally woke up. I finished making lunch, went to my room, locked the door, and called the bank. With trembling hands, I blocked the card immediately. It was the first time in years I protected myself. Soon after, Edward stormed to my door, furious. Grace had tried to buy $82,000 worth of things, all with my savings. He shouted about how embarrassed Grace was. About how I caused trouble. But I stayed calm. That money is mine. I worked for it. I decide what happens to it. For the first time in 20 years. I said no. Grace eventually came home screaming, saying I humiliated her. She insisted my savings were family money. Edward told me I was selfish, too old to need anything for myself. They said I should stay because I had nowhere else to go. Because I'd die alone. But I'd rather be alone with dignity than live like their maid. That night, with the house silent, I called my best friend Linda. I told her everything, the disrespect, the money, the years of being treated like nothing. She didn't hesitate. "Pack your things tomorrow. You're coming to live with me." For the first time in a long time. I felt hope. You know what's worse than loneliness? Living in a place where you feel invisible. That house was draining my spirit, and Linda knew it. When I told her through tears that her apartment was too small for me, she didn't care. "Tomorrow you pack and come to my place." "That's not a suggestion," she said with that strong voice she only used when she needed to push me. That night, I barely slept. I stared at the ceiling remembering how I ended up there 20 years earlier. Edward and Grace had just married. They wanted a bigger house but couldn't afford the down payment, so I sold my tiny apartment, the one I worked so hard for, and gave them $50,000. "It's a loan, Mom. 2 years and I'll pay you back," Edward promised. But years passed, 2, 5, 10, and he never mentioned it again. When I dared to bring it up, he'd say I already had food and a roof. I was naive. I trusted my own son, and he took advantage of me because he knew I feared being alone. But my dignity mattered more than my fear. Friday morning, I woke up early. I made breakfast like always, but I didn't stay to serve it. I showered, put on my best clothes, and packed my life into 2 old suitcases, simple clothes, a few shoes, photos, documents, and the small jewelry box with the few things that truly meant something to me. I heard Edward and Grace having breakfast, the meal I prepared, but they never checked on me. I waited for them to leave for work. When the house was silent, I walked through each room one last time. The kitchen I spent hours in. The living room I wasn't allowed to relax in. The dining table where I wasn't seen. I put the house keys on the table and left a note, "I'm leaving. I need to get my dignity back. Don't look for me. I love you, but I love myself more." Then I called a cab. Mr. Ernest, the neighbor, asked if I was going on a trip. "Something like that," I said, forcing a smile. On the way to Linda's, I looked out the window watching the city I lived in my whole life pass by. Instead of sadness, I felt relief. Linda was waiting outside. She hugged me so tightly I cried, but those tears came from gratitude. Her apartment was small but peaceful. No tension. No insults hiding behind polite voices. "This is your home now, for however long you need," she told me. I didn't know how to thank her, but she said friends don't need thanks. We spent the morning putting away my things, and for the first time in years, I felt welcome. Then Edward started calling. Over and over. His voicemail said he was worried. Funny, worry never came when he or Grace mistreated me. I turned off the phone. I needed time to think about my own life for once. Later, Linda and I sat with coffee on her balcony. "The worst part," I whispered, "is not the money. It's realizing I spent 20 years trying to earn my son's love." Linda held my hand. "You didn't waste 20 years. You gave unconditional love. The sad part is that they never valued it." She reminded me that love shouldn't destroy you. Sacrifice has limits. She told me it was time to think about Josephine, my happiness, my future. I told her my dream, a small place of my own where I don't feel like a burden. "Then we'll find it," she said. That night, I slept on her sofa bed, and it was the best sleep I'd had in years, no fear, no anxiety. The next morning, we went to see apartments. The first few weren't right. But the last one, it felt like home instantly. A small, bright second-floor apartment with a lovely view of a little park. The price was $55,000. I could pay cash and still have enough to live comfortably. I walked around imagining my life there. Peace. Freedom. Safety. "I'll buy it," I said with confidence I didn't know I still had. By Monday, we'd start the paperwork. In just 1 week, I could be a homeowner again. Not a burden. Not an unwanted guest. But a woman who finally chose herself. Leaving that house was the moment I finally chose myself. Linda welcomed me into her small apartment with open arms, and for the first time in years, I slept peacefully, no fear, no tension. The next morning, we began searching for my own place. After visiting several apartments, I found the perfect one, bright, cozy, on the second floor overlooking a park. It cost $55,000, I could pay in cash and still have savings left. I imagined my bed, my photos, my coffee by the window, a life where I wasn't a burden. So I bought it. Meanwhile, Edward kept calling nonstop, suddenly worried. But that concern never existed when he and Grace treated me like a servant and tried to spend my savings. I turned off my phone. I needed peace more than apologies. Over the next days, Linda helped me with everything, paperwork, meals, even laughter I thought I had lost forever. When the sale finalized, my name was finally on the deed. I was a homeowner again. I invited Linda to celebrate that night. We drank a little wine, and I looked around at my empty apartment, my new start. A place where no one could insult me or silence me. A place where I mattered. I knew Edward would eventually find me, and yes, there would be consequences, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I had my dignity back. After 20 long years of being used and ignored, I finally chose me.